So now we've seen how to adjust the overall tonality of our images and also how to adjust the white balance and different things like that. Now we're going to start to take a look at one of the more creative aspects of Camera Raw, and that's the amazing ability to convert to grayscale and still have the ability to change tonality with these HSL Crayscale sliders that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to this little icon here, this HSL Grayscale slider. And what we're going to do is come in here and we're going to click the Convert to Grayscale button. When I click that button, it's going to automatically convert this photograph to black and white. Now, this is not the best black and white conversion by any means. I'm not real thrilled with the default that it has here. But what you get is the ability to control all the different tonal regions of this image by adjusting these sliders down here. So for instance, if I wanted to lighten up the areas of the photograph that were red originally and make those lighter, I could simply take this slider and start dragging it to the right. And you should notice that some of those areas of the horse start to lighten up. This will be a little bit more obvious in the oranges because this horse has a lot of orange in him that's making up that brown color. So if I take this slider and start moving it to the right, you see all those areas of the horse that start to lighten up? However, I'm still maintaining that original tonality of all this area back here that doesn't contain that orange color. So the same is true if I wanted to darken the areas which contain all the rest of these colors. So let's say I want to darken up the areas that contain yellow. So I'll go ahead and start pushing this to the left. And you'll notice here that I get the control over most of this area back here because a lot of that grassy area and also the dirt and dust areas back there, that contains a lot of yellow. So by dragging these sliders back and forth, you're able to control the specific aspects of certain colored areas. Now, you don't get individual control over certain areas. For instance, if I only wanted to lighten up the oranges in the nose of the horse, I couldn't do that because it's a global adjustment. It affects the entire image no matter what. So until they give us the ability to edit these specific areas of color, we're really not going to have the ability to control those. So mind you that if you make a specific edit and you're only focusing on one area, you probably need to take a look at the entire photograph just to make sure that you're not affecting it in a way that you don't need to be affecting it. Let's say I wanted to brighten up this area down here in the horse. I know that contains a lot of orange, so I'll go ahead and keep pushing that up. Now, if I keep pushing this until I can see all the details down here in the bottom of the horse, for instance, see I've brought back a lot of that muscle structure down there in the bottom of the horse, but I've also lost a lot of detail up here in these highlights of his neckline. So you've got to be really careful when using these sliders simply because you don't get that individual control over specific tonal areas. So just remember, every edit you make with these is a global adjustment. You're affecting every single orange tone in the image or every single yellow tone in the image. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to undo all of those changes I just made. So I'm going to push that maybe to about plus 25. That's going to be decent enough to open that horse up just a little bit. And now I'm also just going to play around with some of these other settings to kind of mix what I call the perfect monochrome. Now, what the perfect monochrome, in my opinion, is something that has really deep and rich blacks, really light and popping highlights, but still maintains a whole lot of detail and just creates an overall great edgy composition. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to decrease the brightness of the green areas as well. You see there I'm getting a little bit darker area back in here. And I'm going to decrease that even more, probably to about -70, somewhere around there. I'll even take the yellows back that far as well. We'll take those down, and then let's open up the horse just a little bit more. I need to be careful because I'm starting to lose some highlight values here. So you just have to be careful each and every time you make an adjustment to make sure that you're not losing detail. That's the key here, is not to lose detail. However, if you do start to lose detail, the great thing is you can always switch back to this main editing panel here, and you can still use those fill light and recovery sliders here inside of the dialog box. So if you wanted to, you could go ahead and adjust the fill light, you could adjust the recovery, and you'd still be able to bring back some of those different areas when you're working with these sliders. So in essence, you have more control over the grayscale images here inside of Camera Raw than you do inside of Photoshop CS3. So I would recommend, if you're working with a Camera Raw file, to do your grayscale conversions in Camera Raw simply because of the amount of control you get. Now, if you're a more visual person, like you like the ability to change the tonal regions by clicking and dragging inside the actual image itself, then you're going to have to go ahead and use Photoshop's new black and white adjustment layer, which I'm going to be covering in a later chapter in this series. And what that allows you to do is actually take this little color sampler tool, click inside of the image, and drag left or right to lighten or darken that specific area of the image. That's a very cool feature, and one that I really wish they had built into the Camera Raw. But however, for the time being, we're going to just have to be satisfied with all these sliders here on the right and the control that we get here with the limited global adjustments that we've seen so far. So if you go ahead and start mixing and matching these colors, you'll be well on your way to creating what I like to call the perfect monochrome.